As part of my study on geeks and how they do things, I decided to go on to a free comic book day. And that's what I've been doing for, several years now. And I usually take someone along with me just because that means I get more comics. And honestly, there's been a couple of comics that I saw but I couldn't grab, and now I'm trying to find them again and figure out a way so that I can look into that group or into that comic series. So it was a wonderful morning, and I went and I picked up a guy named Mark, and he knows central Spokane a lot better than I do. I know the outer areas really well, but central Spokane, it's just a lot of traffic and headache for me, so I just don't go into it very often. I live in Cheney, so I'm just like, why do this? I mean, it's a nice city, but Seattle is better, in all honesty. But it is a beautiful city. It's very old school to it. It feels like New York back in the 80s. And you can just see that in the buildings, how they just kind of are old. And they try to keep that feel as best they can. And this is the first place that we went to is called Merlin's. They also own another bookstore and a board game shop. And this is just straight from the front door. And the guy there is like, "Oh, hey." And I really didn't know what to expect when I came in. And I just kind of walked in and went, "Wow, it looks like a warehouse, only it's got kind of a ton of comics and board games and stuff." And I just looked around, took some pictures as fast as I could. And that guy's just like, what are you looking at, man?" And hey, look, it's the tower thing I took a picture of from Bremerton. And I walked around and I enjoyed myself. This is once again a geek circle in this area. You know, a couple blocks over is another geeky item. So really, this would be a great place for an arcade in that, within the next two blocks. And actually, there is, now that I think about it. And just this was my first time. Oh, this is actually a playset. I mean, it's multi-storied and stuff, and it's really cool. And you don't realize that that pillar right in front of you is all of an inch tall. Board game area in the back. Took some pictures of that stuff. And honestly, these are, I don't know why, but they're just kind of not right. And then there's a bar restaurant thing right next to it with the bottles hanging down. Very old school Washington. In Washington, we used to collect bottles and put them next to windows, and that was actually a decoration. And that's a weird thing for people to hear about because they assumed I was just being kind of a hoarder. And it was like, no, look, I've got bottles and stuff. When this happened when I lived in Phoenix, they just thought I was really weird. Well, they thought I was weird anyway. Anyway, they had books, and it was kind of a how shall we say it, an indie shop. They made sure to show the indie stuff. And I will be honest with you, I didn't take a picture of the one thing I should have taken a picture of, which was the comics themselves, the free comic book day comics. And it was all on one shelf, and honestly, I feel kind of bad about it because if I were being honest, there was some comics that caught my eye, and I didn't take a picture of it because I didn't think about it. Anyway, this is the name of the restaurant right next door, and right there, see, Wizard Biscuit. So this little area is a geek circle, and it's just got some great architecture that looks kind of Danish, doesn't it? And just a couple blocks away was a place called Aunties and Uncles. And this is Aunties. It's a kind of an indie bookshop. And they just had a ton of books. It's not as big as Powell's, but it is 2 stories high. So it's pretty big for Spokane. And, I just walked around, took some pictures. Really, we were there for Free Comic Book Day, so I was just doing a quick shot as fast as I could. And, I wasn't trying to do anything special. This is the second story. And, I just looked, and this is down the stairs into the children's section. And I just thought, oh, cool, Waldo. And Central Spokane just feels kind of, just old school and kind of has an old-timey feel to it. It's trying to keep the feel it had when it was having the what is it, the World's Fair back in the 60s and 70s. And a lot of the stuff from the World's Fair is still there, and they try to maintain it and keep it up because they're like, look, we had this World's Fair here. This was really cool. And so that's kind of an aesthetic throughout Spokane. I saw that book and I was like, I kind of want to get it, but I don't have any money. So I walked around and then I went to Uncle's, which is inside of Auntie's, and I just realized I didn't focus very well. Sorry. And Uncle's is a board game shop here in Spokane. There's a couple different places that have an Uncle's in it. And I found out later that there's all over Washington, there's Uncle's, which is pretty cool. But as you can see, it's just an old school looking shop. And I took a picture of the Pink Ranger just because I saw a shiny version of the Pink Ranger at a shop, and I didn't take a picture of it. And I feel dumb about it now. And there's Uncle's. And there's just a lot of places to go look at. And I think I've actually parked there at that parking lot. But I can't remember, honestly. Yeah, I have. I was going to the bus stop. And, you know, if all these cars were 30 years old, you wouldn't notice a difference. And so I just walked around, took some pictures. Mark, the guy I was with, was just like, why are you taking pictures? It's just an ordinary city. I was like, wrong. It's an old school city. And by the way, that's a Porsche, as far as I can tell. And, you know, in the minds of a lot of people, they don't see the really cool aspect of their own city because it's just this thing to them. And this is a place called the Barcade. It wasn't open, so I couldn't go in and take any pictures. But if you look at some past pictures from the Native Video Gamer site page on Facebook, you'll see a picture of this from an older phone that I had. And I just walked around and took some pictures. And on my way back to my car, and we drove to the mall. And this is a ordinary day in the mall. Now that I look at it, there is nobody there, and it is a Saturday. That's actually kind of creepy. It's not as creepy as that one time when everything was closed down, but it was still open. And I was just like, oh man, this is a bad sign. So they had free comics, 3 for the price of free, but you could get 5 if you paid $1. And they didn't tell me that at that time, so I just grabbed what comics I could. Bongo comics, I think I got the Amazing Spider-Man there. And I'm trying to spot the comic I got there. I don't see it. It's okay. And I just went around, took some pictures because I feel like doing this on Instagram later. This is Barnes & Noble right here. We just were there to see if they had anything. Oh, that wasn't Barnes & Noble. That's still the comic shop. They had cookies. Happiness is a warm tauntaun. But this is more just to show you kind of the aspects and the feel to the comic shop in the mall, the Northtown Mall. And it is owned by the same guy who... this is just a display. Like, half of the shops aren't actually there. And so they have displays to say, okay, you know, we do have some shops here and you should check them out. But as many people have pointed out, retail is dying, and so is this mall. It's not as dying as fast as the mall I used to go to back in high school, but this mall is dying. And we went to the next comic shop. You can see the stack there, and I paid $1 so that I could get 5 comics. And then I walked around looking for comics that I might enjoy. And I don't know why. The things that caught my mind were the ones with interesting ideas in them. And this is an old shop. It's been around since the 90s. And they've got a nice wide selection for you to enjoy. And they had everything up on display. And they even had a sale going on. And I just kind of did pictures. The next shop was in a place called Liberty Lake. It was a 30-minute drive. Or we'll go 20 minutes. 20-minute drive. 30-minute drive. And they're a lot smaller. but they do have some cool things like used video games. And I saw Lufia 2, and it's $20. And I saw Mischief Makers, which was also $20, which doesn't sound like a lot to you, but these games are games I've been meaning to get anyway. And I saw some comics I liked, so I took pictures of them, and that stack is just comics for people to read. They are for sale, though, so you can't just grab them. And this is just from the opening door, what it looks like. A lot more sparse, but they're just opening, and honestly, this is more than all the other shops have in that little block area. It's empty otherwise. And so I kind of let them do stuff, and I took a picture of the used game area, all of it. There it is. And it's interesting to note that I have all the consoles on display here, and I was just like, wow, this is kind of cool. And the Silver Surfer, that's an omnibus, and it is $75. So I wasn't about to go get it. And then something about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I guess there's a convention, SpoCon, some kind of thing. And I thought I'd take a picture of it, so then later on I could go check it out later on. I could go check it out. And yeah, just took some quick pictures, saw stuff that I liked. They weren't particularly indie shop, they were just trying to get their foot in as best they could. This is actually the second shop in Liberty Lake. I don't know where the other one is, but they're trying. And then we go into Cabela's just because they've got food there. And this is a very different type of geek shop, but it is definitely a geek shop. I'm kind of wondering what the story is on the ladies on the left, where they're just like, oh no, I'm being fired. Or, oh my gosh, he's going to propose to me today. And we just, there's literally a grocery store in Cabela's. That kind of weird. And I went to the restaurant. It's not really a restaurant. It's more of a cafe. And for $4, I got a hot dog, some chips, and some soda. And that's what I did. That's what I grabbed. That turned out to be the only meal I ate that day. And yeah, I did too much ketchup, and the mayo it just didn't spread right. But the guns were still cool. Mostly rifles, and not any rifles that I was particularly interested in. And then the handguns, I was like, that's a good one. That's a good one, I guess. I'm not into handguns. But, good stuff. And they're very obvious about what kind of thing they're selling to. But honestly, if you started to talk to a gun guy, you would find out he was just as geeky about guns as somebody can be about comics. You are looking at a geek circle. It's just for more outdoorsy, geeky things. And I took a picture so that you could see kind of the idea that every angle has a different item so that you know where you are at all points. You can just triangulate yourself on where you are, and you're just kind of moving in this circle. And yeah, just that's to the left, and then to the right is the fish place. And there's a fish, which I couldn't focus on because it was moving. And, oh yeah, this is a Domino's set for adults and outdoors. And it looks really cool, so I took a picture of it. And true story, I actually showed up with a t-shirt from one of the conventions I wore, and people started asking me where stuff was, and I was like, I don't know. I just got here myself. And I'm fairly certain they made a complaint to their manager or something. I was like, yeah, go ahead. Complain to the manager about me. Go for it. The guy in the shirt with the blue shirt, yeah, you should fire him. He doesn't know where anything is. And I was like, well, yeah. But I did find out they were hiring, and I am trying to find a job outside of where I'm working now, because it's just time. It's time to move on. And I just got Mark back. He needed to make a payment to his phone service, so we went into suburban central Washington, or central Spokane, which is kind of boring, honestly. Most of the houses are from the 70s and 80s, and that's about it. But I saw King of Ramen, and my family is kind of We actually have competitions on what kind of ramen to eat, or with ramen. And so I was like, oh, we're gonna have to try this out the next time we're all together. King of ramen, you better be ready. We'll be there. And yeah, and I dropped Mark off, and it was this amazingly nice neighborhood. So I decided to take some pictures. I needed to go to the Safeway across the street from what used to be the Hastings, one of the coolest geek circles in all of Spokane. It's gone under, but I still know the area pretty well just because of that one shop. And the Beacon Cleaners had something blocking the E, so I was trying to figure out how Bacon Cleaners was going to work. And I got to tell you, I was very, very disappointed in finding out it wasn't bacon. Like, really disappointed. And then I just went and took pictures, and that was my day, basically. Oh, this is from the Safeway that I went to. I needed to buy deodorant, and I was like, hey, Safeway, right there. Okay. And I just took pictures of Safeway, and that was pretty much my trip. There's no special ending here. Well, okay, I'll show you. Oh, yeah. Yeah. About halfway through, I found out my friend Goots had passed away. His real name is Eric Gootsweiler, but in high school, we all knew him as Goots, and his other nickname was Cancer Boy. So you can imagine kind of this weird moment when I realized, oh, cancer finally got to him. About halfway through the trip, I noticed a text and I found out my friend had died. Cancer had finally killed him. And I was trying to be nice with Mark and be pleasant and stuff, and also mourn at the same time. And it was hard. But I got home, and the apple blossoms had finally flowered. And I had been waiting for weeks for this to happen. And I was just like, I needed the flowers for this moment. Because, I'll always look at those flowers now, and I'll just remember Goots. And Yakima used to have the flowers. It had tons and tons of apple trees, and they were all very, very ugly because they slaughtered them, or they were designed for picking the apples, not making a beautiful tree. And the only time of the year, like for 2 weeks, you had a nice green, beautiful place, and the apple blossoms were gorgeous during that time. And it's apple blossom season in Yakima, where I went to high school with Goots. And I just got to see these flowers, and I got to have a moment remembering him. And I was so happy to see that. And this is my haul. I went to, let's see now, I went to multiple comic shops, but only 4 had comics for sale, or had free comics that day. 3, really. It was 3. The others just didn't have it. And so this is what I grabbed. And I'm actually on the look for the ones I didn't grab. And I've gone through some lists and already chosen some stuff out. And already said, okay, I'm going to wish list this. I'm going to wish list this. I'm going to hold off, buying anything because I've got this big trip coming up next month, and I've got to save up for that. But honestly, I am good. And it was a good day. If it wasn't for the fact that I found out one of my best friends back in high school had passed away, I would have called it a great day. But just one of those sunrise sunset types of days. But as Geek Circles went, I saw a lot of really new places, found out about the culture around, and heard about things, and I really enjoyed doing that study. But I also lost a friend, and that hurts. So it was a good day. And that was my free comic book day experience.